This is the Blue Moon Podcast. Coming up, we've got all the news and views from Manchester City's week. It's your club, and this is your show.
Two comfortable first halves this week and then contrasting fortunes in the two second halves as Manchester City capitulated against Tottenham to drop more points in the title race, but they did at least see the game out against Newcastle for a comfortable 5-1 aggregate win to make the League Cup final. There's lots to pack into today's Blue Moon podcast. We'll be looking at just why City are finding minutes 45 to 70 so difficult at the moment. We'll talk about what's been said about the referees and the officiating in the last few weeks. Plus, Pep Guardiola spoke about world events on Tuesday in a rather unexpected second half of his pre-match press conference. That's before we even get to the previews of the games with Liverpool and Fulham, where we'll be hearing from Neil from the Anfield Wrap and Elizabeth from Fulhamish to find out what City can expect in those coming matches. Let's begin then. I'm David Mooney. This week I am joined by the Daily Mail's Jack Gaughan.
Hello, David.
And we're joined by, from the City Ramble podcast, Oli McCoole. Hi, Ollie.
Hi, David. How are you doing?
Not too bad, thank you. Not too bad. How are things?
Not too bad here as well.
Good. Now, we will get to the press conference that he gave a bit later on, Jack, properly. But Guardiola spoke a lot recently as well about City only being 7th in the net spend table over the last 5 years, which I think suggests that maybe they've had value for money. So come on, give us your best value for money purchases that you've made.
Value for money purchases. There was a time, it was many moons ago, that I managed to buy myself a latte for £2.40.
Goodness me, what year was this?
That felt like a value for money purchase.
We're going back to 2004.
It's a lot. It was, they were, who was the Prime Minister? Probably Cameron, I reckon. That felt like value for money at the time. And the thing was, I did it every day. So I was getting value for money every day.
And you've bought a house.
Look
at how well you're doing.
I was able to buy a house because I was getting value for money for my coffee every day.
I see. Yeah.
So I saved up because that was great. I thought I did really well managing to source coffee for that price. But sadly, I can't do that anymore. Long
gone. Are you still quite as addicted to the coffee, or?
No, I'm more addicted to saving money, to be honest.
Fine. Excellent. Ollie, best value for money purchase. I know, for instance, I know you've just adopted a cat, so I know that every penny you're earning is currently being drained by a small creature. So I guess you need value for money where you can get it.
Absolutely. I mean, he's been here 5 days, and my bank account has been ravaged. Just like my sofas will be, I'm sure, in the coming months. Best value for money purchase. I wish I could say it's a coffee, because I don't think I've spent under £4 on a coffee for years now. Probably one of my guitars. In terms of kind of hours put into them for the amount of money I've paid, I'd say one of my guitars. Because I've had my youngest one, the one I've had the least amount of time, I've had about 10 years now. So they've served me well.
Yeah, no wear and tear.
I mean, they do have a bit of wear and tear, because I'm the sort of when I was in bands and stuff, I was the sort of idiot guitarist who flung a guitar around my head and ran about a stage like a moron. So they've definitely taken some batterings, but they still play beautifully. So that's all I care about.
Excellent.
David used to do that with a recorder, didn't you, David?
I could. This may surprise you, but I was also a guitarist. I haven't played in a long time though, so I've lost a lot of what I had.
Lead or bass?
I wasn't brilliant. Rhythm guitar.
Okay. I don't really know much about this, but is rhythm guitar like sort of similar to when you go, what's your favourite Smiths album, and you go the best of?
Yeah, basically. I can play chords, but not really do solos.
Think Bonehead, not Noel.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
There you go. Right, anyway, this wasn't about me. Anyway, let's talk about City. Jack, we had this question in from David on Blue Sky, who says, which is the more accurate stat to describe City's Premier League form right now? 1 win in 6 games or 1 defeat in 12 games? Aside from the fact that both are accurate, it's kind of a bit more about the vibe of things at the moment. And I feel that 1 win in 6 games tells a bigger story.
Yeah, I mean, you're inherently negative, aren't you? So you would probably go for the 1 in 6. I think the 1 in 6 is more representative of where they're at, to be honest. I just find, Arsenal have been there for the taking for the last month, and it feels like a massive missed opportunity for City with the way they've been playing. Like they haven't been good enough in second halves. I know that's obviously like a major topic at the moment, but that's been an issue all season, really, to differing degrees. And then, amazingly, even though they've scored more goals than everyone else in the Premier League, they're not scoring enough goals at the moment. And they're missing
that's because they keep conceding goals, isn't it? That's the thing.
No, it's just that they're missing chances. So I did a piece after the Newcastle game on Wednesday night that sort of discusses the missed chances. And I looked at the last 6 Premier League games, this run of 6 and only 1 win. Obviously 4 of them have been draws. I counted, and I wasn't being harsh with this. I thought I was being fairly fair, or very fair. I counted 28 good missed opportunities in those 6 games. There was 8 at Sunderland alone, like good chances. And you go like, if you're doing that,
because I'm interested in like what were you considering a good chance as well? Because like you take into when you see like big chances created as the stat that Opta kind of puts out from time to time, you always have that like if a shot hasn't happened, sometimes it doesn't count as a chance. But there's like if you drill a ball through the 6-yard box and someone stretches and doesn't connect to it, like that is obviously a chance, but it doesn't go down as a shot, or as a, like doesn't get recorded like that.
Well, I mean, yeah. So that would be the actual figure might be even higher. I mean, I have in that 28, there were a couple of instances of. So there's one at Sunderland where Cherky and Savino were basically crossing to each other on each side of the box and not finding anyone. So it looked like they were basically crossing aimlessly. So that's that for players of their quality in a team like City, I would consider that to be like a pretty big chance because you've got to pick someone out. And then if we look at it as sort of things that are fresh in your mind, like the Haaland one that Ramsdale makes a good save in the Newcastle late on in the Newcastle game on Wednesday. That's a really good chance for him. So that's the sort of thing that I would, even though it's a really good save, so it's not necessarily a miss. That's one where you go, well, if he's at the peak of his powers, then it doesn't matter what goalkeeper is in that. He's keeping goal. Yeah, it doesn't matter, does it? So I just find it. I find it quite interesting looking at the sort of extended highlights of those 6 games, the ones that City have put on their own YouTube and their website. And just picking apart like
what's consistently happening.
How sort of like how much difficulties they have actually been having in and around the box. And Pep's mentioned it himself.
Ollie, when you're watching this unfold, like continually game after game, where they're missing chances, does it basically suggest that this City team is? I hate the phrase in transition because like if they're crap again next season and the season after, then they're just it's just a blip. It's just a drop off from where they've been previously. But it feels like they have a lot to learn right now. And so like where do you see the progress is for this City team? Like how far into the development are they of the new era City?
I think it's interesting when you look at that because obviously at the end of last season, you could see some obvious kind of highlights. Marmoush had really settled into the team, pretty much got the team Champions League football on his own back. A couple of other players were returning quite strongly after dismal time earlier in the season. This season, City looked like they were really purring in that kind of October-November period. Cherky looks an absolute phenomenon. Some of the other new guys were settling really well. Nico O'Reilly, I think, has been one of the standout performers this season altogether. But I think where they've got to kind of learn is in killing off games. City at their very best under Pep have always been absolutely ruthless killers. And this is a brand new team. This isn't a team that has won the Premier League title 4 times in a row. This isn't a team that won the treble, really. Some of those players still remain, but the vast majority of them have either gone or are sat on the bench anyway, or are out injured at the moment. So it is really
it's that thing, isn't it? Of everyone expects City to go on a run, and you kind of like, well, why? Because this team don't have experience of doing that.
Yeah, exactly. I don't doubt that there's players in this side, brand new players that we brought in, that could and will become that sort of, mentality demon, as City have been in the past. I look at Ryan Cherky and just nothing phases him. He's not the kind to get overly aggressive on the pitch. He's not the kind. He just plays his football, and I love watching him play. So I think he's going to be a real focal point. But also we need to, some of the other guys in the team need to shoulder some responsibility. Haaland has been, apart from his cameo on Wednesday night against Newcastle, he's looked pretty lifeless for the last month or so. And maybe that's because he's absolutely shattered because he's played 90 minutes every week, a couple of times a week. But I also look at Phil Foden. He seems to have dropped off again, and I don't really understand why, because he's not necessarily had injuries. He's just kind of fell out of form again. He needs to get back to. He's one of those players that can really shoulder some burden here and say, no, I'm a senior player in this side now. I don't care that I was once the young academy kid. I'm no longer that kid anymore. I've got to shoulder some burden and step up and have another 20, 30 goal season like he did a couple of years ago when we last won the league. So yeah, there's some major development to come, but also the fact that we don't have a settled defensive midfielder because Rodri's in and out with various injuries and knocks and fitness issues. Nico Gonzalez has been, he looks pretty goosed himself, because he was played to death while Rodri was recovering. If we can ever get both of them to fit together and kind of balance their workload, I think City could look a lot more settled. But right now, they just don't have the experience of seeing those games out. They're getting the experience of what it means to hurt them, and probably by the end of the season, they'll understand how it can cost you. Because I don't know if they're going to win the league title this year. It's very much in Arsenal's hands at the moment, if you ask me. But there's a lot of learning to do. And defensively, Gaughan's been a really solid addition. Yes, he's had some horror moments, like against Tottenham Hotspur. But overall, I think he's gonna blossom into a really solid player. Mateus Nunes, he's another one who's just played a bit too much football, I think, and it's starting to show. But he has been absolutely brilliant this season, and that's a guy I've railed against for a very, very long time in terms of why is he still here. I was saying in the summer, why is he still here? Why aren't we buying a right back? But he's kind of proven a lot of people wrong, especially myself. So yeah, it's just some players who've been here a longer time need to step up and lead this team a bit more. They can't just rely on Bernardo, who's now apparently a doubt for the weekend. But also, some of those younger players and some of those newer players just need to kind of not be afraid to show themselves and kind of imprint on this team, because when they do that, we do look really good. When they don't, we get those stodgy sort of performances in the second half like we've seen.
Yeah, well, speaking of second halves, Jack, you mentioned it earlier. John on the emails says, why does City have a problem with the second half of games? Is it the approach? Are they getting complacent, or is it something deeper than that? Obviously, the stats have been out recently. They've dropped 11 points from being in front at half-time in Premier League games. City's expected goals faced in first halves is totals 7.8. In second halves, it totals 20.1. And Guardiola...
part of the 20.1 will be because they've played so well in the first halves and teams are chasing the game, aren't they?
Yes, yeah. Well, this is the balance of it all, because the other stat was City could be, like, if games had ended at half time, then City would be 12 points ahead of Arsenal, which again, the City have been ahead at half time more than any other team, so that suggests that Arsenal's second halves are good. So that it's not necessarily reflective of only City's kind of agency in this, but undoubtedly there is a major drop off for City after half time. That minutes 45 to 70, especially like against Tottenham, they were 2-0 up and cruising, and the way that second half started, I genuinely thought I could see them losing this.
Yeah, I thought they'd get beat, actually, sitting there Sunday watching it. To be honest with you, Wednesday night, Newcastle had loads of chances. 4 or 5 really good chances. So I tweeted at half-time, 5-goal lead is probably good enough, probably just about enough for the second half City. And, there was... Newcastle could have made it quite interesting.
Since New Year's Day, they've played 11 games since New Year's Day, and if you were to take it, that old go out and win the second half thing that people say,
it's 0-0.
Well, if they were to win the second half, if you would talk about second halves only, they've won 2 of them.
Yeah,
since New Year's Day.
Yeah. The I think the answer's probably quite boring in a sense, and I think it's quite similar to what I was saying about the missed chances before. In previous years or previous incarnations of like sort of Guardiola's City, you knew with the missed chance, you knew that a De Bruyne was going to pick someone out with a cutback. He was going to do something that looked simple but is genius, and he knew where everyone was. I'm just using him as an example, but they were all the same, and they would find a way of making scoring as easy as possible because they'd done it so many times, and that they were all really experienced and they were all really well drilled and played with each other for ages. Blah blah blah. The same sort of similar traits are going on with the second half performances in the sense that it's a very young team, and they don't have the muscle memory of knowing what to do when opposition change the way they're playing in the second half, like I was saying before about chasing a game. So in previous years, when opposition have altered what they were doing, you had players out there that could sort it out for themselves. Because quite a lot of the time, Pep leaves it up to the senior guy, or leaves it to the players themselves to figure it out. Quite a lot of the time, but when you've got a team that, you know, at the moment there's no Diaz, Rodri, as Oli said, Rodri's in and out. There's not that sort of. It's not leadership because you've got Silva. Silva's a different leader, but it's just like this sort of game management and like intelligence, and just like doing the shit stuff and just getting it over the line and stuff like that. Where they just haven't got that at the moment. And I think that'll change with time. I think someone like Gaughan is probably quite good for that. Kind of I don't want to say no nonsense, but someone that you know you're going to get 7 out of 10 and he's going to do his job and drag other people with him. I think it is an emotional maturity sort of thing more than anything else, and it will correct itself.
I wondered, Ollie, if there was an element of self-fulfilling prophecy about this, where in the last few weeks they get really anxious about that period after half-time and then start doing stupid things. Like you look at the period after half-time against Newcastle, one of the things, like Kusanov gives it away immediately in the start of the second half, and then like not long after that, Elaine dallies around with it, loses it in his own box, could give away a penalty. It's like they're just individual errors, but the period in the game that they're happening is the point just after half-time when they're going, oh God, we better not do anything bad here. Everything turns to crap.
Yeah, I think that's sort of true of City teams over the years as well, because you know, years and years ago, it was typical City, and it was probably the same sort of mentality where, oh God, don't make a mistake, don't do a typical City thing, and it's kind of creeping back in. You know, I always think back to kind of, I hate saying this phrase, Pep's worst seasons, but you know, you look at say his first season or 1920, where City were one of the top scoring teams in the league, but for the love of God, they couldn't stop a counter. You know, as City have become this more direct physical team themselves, you can kind of see that susceptibility to the counter attack creeping back in, and then you pair that with kind of younger or inexperienced players in the back line. You know, those individual errors crop up a bit more. So they're probably thinking, I've given away this type of goal before, I don't want to give it away again. I've given away this type of goal before, I don't want to give it away again. And then
done it again.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and I don't know whether that's something that you can sort of coach out tactically, or whether it is something that, you know, they might have to sit with a sports psychologist and just kind of work through. But you know, there's definitely some sort of mentality about it for me, and that's the word I will keep coming back to with this City team, because yes, a lot of them are brand new. You know, we are in the middle of this kind of rebuilding the squad phase where the rebuild looks almost finished, but there's still just a couple of, you know, little gaps here and there that they just need to plug essentially. And that's before any more players depart. But I just feel like it's something that will come with time, but I just don't know whether it's going to be in time enough for this season become a real success. But then again, you look at it, and we're in a Carabao Cup final. 6 points with Arsenal still to play isn't a horrendous position. We did manage to automatically qualify for the round of 16 in the Champions League, which we didn't do last season. Strangely enough, we could end up with Real Madrid again, but there we go. That's what UEFA like to do to us.
That's how the Champions League works. It's just like City draw Real Madrid and then everything goes back to normal.
Well, I think that's it, isn't it? I think that's the one common thread that's ran through all of the City teams in recent years. Going from the false nine, year without a striker, we played Real Madrid. Then winning the treble, we played Real Madrid. Last year, a couple of years ago, we're constantly playing them. So, some of these players are starting to get experience of playing these guys. And I think that can only be a good thing. But yeah, we just need some, like Jack was saying, we need a game manager to just step up and take it on a bit more. I'm sure the return of Ruben Dias will bring that sort of steel back to the defence. But, there's no reason why, and Jack mentioned Mark Gaughan, there's no reason why he can't start imprinting on this team now. And, I don't want to say acting like the captain because he's not, but you get the sense that because he's done that job at Crystal Palace so well, he's going to probably step into that role quite seamlessly at City. And the fact that he'll know a fair few of the guys from England camps, especially some of the younger guys like Nico O'Reilly, who's been in the England squad a couple of times. It's going to feel a very natural step up for him to come in and do that job at City, especially because he's probably going to be in the starting 11 until the end of the season, with Guardiola's injury. So, yeah, I think it's something we'll probably be looking back at this in May, regardless of what we want, and thinking, yeah, this team have matured a bit more and they're getting there. But
building blocks. Yeah.
You've just got to ride it out when it's happening, as frustrating as it is. And don't get me wrong, I was swearing at the telly, against Spurs. I was swearing at the telly against Newcastle in that second half, thinking just don't let a chance in. But it happens.
Right. Well, there's been other kind of elements to City's conceding goals lately. Guardiola and the team have had a lot to say about the officiating. Here's Dan Burke.
Let's start by going all the way back to November. City were beaten 2-1 at Newcastle, and in the 17th minute, Phil Foden was chopped down in the box by Fabian Schär as the defender desperately slid across to try and make a block. Pep Guardiola was asked if he was surprised not to get a penalty, especially since the incident was checked and cleared by the VAR.
So it is.
You went to the referee at full time. What do you say to you?
No, nothing. Everything is fine.
Sky reporting now. You went to see inside his room.
Everything is fine. Everything is fine. So it's what it is.
Later in that same press conference, he was asked about Newcastle's winner. A tight offside was cleared by the VAR in the build-up, while Gianluigi Donnarumma was booked for dissent. He wanted a foul.
He believed, when he goes there and touches the ball, is in a stable, is not foul, and the last action, 95 minutes, to central defenders for the ball is fault. So, what can I say? So, Gio will learn and happen. And so I played 2 finals, FA Cup finals against United and against Crystal Palace, and oh my God, did I say something? Nothing. So it's what it is, and I lost.
If City have lost and there's been a contentious decision, Guardiola usually doesn't comment. But in the last few weeks, he's been getting closer to boiling point. After a 5.5-minute VAR check to disallow an Antoine Semenyo goal for a subjective offside in the League Cup semi-final first leg at Newcastle, he spoke out, possibly because his side won. And he also included some frustrations from the previous league game at St James Park.
I said now, so I would like to know why VAR in the 60 minutes in the Premier League game against Newcastle that we lost 2-1 with 0-0, it was an insane penalty for Schär for Phil Foden, not even say in consideration. And at 20 minutes, there is an unbelievable penalty for the shoot for Jeremy Doku that Theo in the hand, and not even VAR. Today, 4 people were not able to decide because the line was, I don't know. But the second goal, the Newcastle score, that was perfect. It was perfect, the line. So I didn't say anything when we lost 2-1 here. No. I didn't say anything when I FA Cup final against Crystal Palace is red card after 30 or 40 minutes for Anderson. He played 52nd minutes. It's really a red card. Did I say anything? No. But okay, it's fine. But
4 days later in the Manchester derby, the VAR checked and cleared a potential red card for serious foul play by Diogo Dalot on Jeremy Doku.
What happened is not a surprise at all for me, what happened at the decision. But it's not, it happened in the past. It's a year there. When I arrived here, one action in Man City, Chelsea, Gundogan with Kante. So now I start to realize, but it's not about that. Because with that, we grow up, always talking. I had to look at ourselves, honestly. So there are a lot of teams that don't win with 10 against 11. And I feel the feeling with the game what we played, maybe we'll have no win. I had to look at ourselves, and today is simple. The analysis, Man United was better than Man City.
Another defeat and no excuses from Guardiola. But a week later, he was happy to speak as City beat Wolves. That was after the VAR advised an on-field review for a potential handball, but the referee rejected the overturn at the monitor.
Can I just ask about the penalty shout and VAR? You seem very frustrated.
Why you ask me that?
He went on to give a 3.5-minute answer, which we've cut down here.
The referee make his debut. Now everybody will know him. It's the first time I think he will go to the TV and is allowed normally positioning the arms. And I'm pretty sure Howard Webb tomorrow is going to appear in the media to explanation why it's not penalty, what they have done against United. Like it's the first time have done it because the situation was a little bit doubts, right? That's why Jeremy could not play in Norway for the action from Dalot.
He also suggested fouls on City players are more routinely ignored after another hefty challenge on Doku was only punished with a yellow card.
If you and me, you run in the side, in our rhythm, and they push us and go down, is diving. But the speed of Jeremy just touch a little bit, he cannot control the speed. You know how many faults they believe in his diving from Jeremy? In the beginning of the season, they tell us the long balls, when the central defender go over the shoulders for the strikers, will be fault, and have a good meeting. Yeah, right. Do you know how many faults for Erling Haaland? He's the better striker that he whistle more faults than the defenders to him. That is that. It's an again and again.
Ahead of the Galatasaray match, Doku was on media duty. He missed the Bodo Glimt game because of the kick from Dalot. On his return against Wolves, he was chopped down painfully again. After that Wolves one, he was asked if he felt wingers like him get enough protection.
I can just say about that tackle, obviously, that was painful. I didn't ask the ref why he didn't give another card, or I just know that it was painful. Just knowing myself and my character, I know that I'm not a diver. So if I fall on the ground, it's probably because something happened.
How many times a week do you think you get like a really heavy knock from a tackle?
Good question. That's a good question. I would say a week, at least one in a game where I feel like, this is a strong tackle. This is a heavy confrontation. So I would say once a game.
And that leads us to last weekend's match with Spurs and the incident between Dominic Solanke and Mark Gaughan.
Pep, can I ask you about Tottenham's first goal that was checked by VAR? Solanke clearly kicks the back of Mark Gaughan's leg.
Okay, then you make the answer.
But do you think the goal should have stood, and what do you think about it?
A central defender do a striker is penalty, right? So you said, I didn't say. So you saw it.
You've spoken a lot about decisions going against you recently. Are you concerned about it, that it keeps happening?
Nothing changed the opinion I had in the past, once again.
After throwing away a 2-0 lead to draw 2-2, frustrations were clearly high. One of the captains, Rodri, was particularly irate when he spoke to the Premier League afterwards.
Honestly, I never speak about referees. I respect their job massively, but they have to pay attention to these things. He kicked the leg, it's so clear. It's so clear. He anticipated the leg of Mark, and it's a clear foul. But it's not today, it's just 2-3 games in a row, and I don't know why, honestly. I know we won too much and the people, they don't want us to win, but the referee has to be neutral. And for me, honestly, it's not fair. It's not fair because we work so hard in these situations now to make these decisions that you have to move on, of course, but you need to come back by the end when everything is finished. You are frustrated because it's so clear, the foul.
But after a couple of days to calm down ahead of the League Cup semi-final second leg with Newcastle, Guardiola again stressed that it's City's own fault that they aren't closer to Arsenal in the table.
Let me be clear, the situation that we're in the Premier League absolutely belongs to us. So for a little bit more, but believe me, a little bit more, we'll be there. So what do you have to do? As I said many times, play better. Defend better, create more chances, more movements, score more goals. Is what they have done. Because we won the Premier League with 100 points. You had to make 100 points to win the Premier League. 97 to win the Premier League, or 99, and 90 to win the Premier League. You have to be top. So no, I don't blame that. When we play bad, it's for the referees. You have to protect the system. Of course you have to protect. I understand that. But belong to us. The reason why in the good and bad is for our job. We have to do better.
Over the years, there are clearly some decisions that have irked Guardiola so much that he's hung on to them, letting them out when his frustrations spill over. He's mentioned the FA Cup final with Crystal Palace several times in the last few weeks, while also dropping in a random challenge from N'Golo Kante on Ilkay Gundogan from nearly a decade ago. As much as he doesn't want to talk about the officials, he's been so annoyed lately that it's been a topic that has just kept coming up.
Hi, I'm Paul Walsh and you're listening to the Blue Moon podcast.
If you enjoy the show, please give it a rating and a review wherever you get your podcasts.
Jack, what do you think about Guardiola's and especially Rodri's comments recently?
Rodri's got form. Rodri's quite a hothead after games. Yes, not someone that can be managed particularly well, I don't think, media-wise. I thought Rodri went over the top. I thought it was very inflammatory. I suggested to someone the other day that maybe that comes from the manager, and basically the manager has sort of paved the way for comments like that, given what he's been saying in recent weeks. But someone said to me, well, Rodri's his own man, he's always been like this, so nothing to do with Pep. But I think there is this sort of
all of Scotland is rattled by Rodri because of what he said after Scotland.
Yeah. Well, that's what he's that's what he's like, isn't it? I can't say. I think it's been slightly unedifying, the whole referee stuff. I don't think the way that Guardiola approached the referee after the Wolves game was right and proper. I thought that was a distasteful moment, really. But I do understand the sort of frustrations at some of the decisions, particularly the Doku red card, the Foden penalty at Newcastle, the Haaland penalty, non-penalty on Sunday at Spurs, the Solanke goal. Personally, I didn't think it was a foul, but Guardiola is completely right in saying that if that had been the other way around,
it's a penalty all day long.
It's a penalty, yeah. So I completely take that on board. So he's probably right about that. So it's just taking on a bit of a life of its own now, and maybe that's through design. Maybe that's what he wanted, and maybe it has detracted from some of the sort of disappointing performances in the last few weeks.
There's an element of this. I mean, Jack mentioned it there, Ollie, about the Haaland non-penalty at Spurs. I've tried to kind of dig into what happened, but all I've got is the commentary from Peter Drury and Gary Neville on the day, who they were effectively reporting that the VAR had the discussions with the VAR was that the contact and the crucial contact and all of that happened before the ball was in play, and therefore.
You can see, sorry, David, you can see from the replay that it was carrying on after the ball had been kicked.
Well, I was going to say this. So there is that element of it. But also, let's say it had stopped and it had all stopped before the ball was in play. Haaland is still on the floor and unable to challenge for the ball because he has been dragged down. So, ultimately, Ollie, do you think Haaland is refereed differently? Guardiola talked about when defenders come over the top and it's not a foul on Haaland, but it is on other players.
Absolutely. I think I don't want to sound like the kind of conspiracy theorist fan here with a tinfoil hat on, although I'm pretty sure I could make one for this. Haaland is refereed differently because he came into the Premier League with this reputation of being incredibly hard to stop, and because he is so strong and because he is so powerful, there are a lot of fouls that would take a normal player down, but it doesn't take him down. But then that doesn't mean that he has to get basically, suffer grievous bodily harm just to get an opposing player booked. You know what I mean? And you can tell that it wasn't frustrating him as much at first, but now it's really getting to him. And I don't mind that in a sense, because hopefully it kicks him into gear and gets him, playing some better football and getting some goals. But at the same time, it is that sense of unfairness that riles Guardiola, that riles fans, that riles Rodri. As a fan, you can say what you like about Rodri's comments, and we've said it here. That's just what he's like as a human being and as a sportsman. I quite like it. I don't mind a bit of siege mentality. I like a bit of siege mentality when it's working, which I think is a bit of the issue that City are having at the moment. I think Pep's trying to kind of stir up a bit of an atmosphere, and he's just still not getting the results out of the players, which isn't exactly getting the kind of kick from the fans that they're clearly wanting. But yeah, Haaland is he's one of one in so many ways, and it's frustrating to watch, because why should he be refereed differently just because he's 6'4" and can take pretty much any sort of beating from any player in the Premier League. At the end of the day, if he still goes down in the box and it's a foul, he still deserves to get a penalty. I don't care, about any other aspects of it. If he goes down in the box and he's getting fouled, it's a penalty.
Does he have to be a little bit more? I don't know. It's weird, isn't it, Jack? Because I was going to say, does he have to be a bit more cute with his duels? But I also don't feel like he's been throwing his weight around enough recently.
We can't
I don't
be
feel
cute,
like
can he?
Well, that's it, because he's built. So because as Guardiola talks about defenders climbing all over him and him not being given a foul, if he does it the other way around, or if he uses his weight, he gets penalised for it. So how does he approach this then? What can he do? Is there anything he can do?
No, not really. I don't think so. Not with the way that he's built. Because your arms are everywhere, whether they're in a natural or unnatural position. I thought you might have sniggered there, David.
I had a mouthful of drink.
It's a real shame.
It's a good
that would have been even better. That would have been the sort of viral video clip that would have earned you some money.
We don't do this to earn money, mate.
But he's not the only sort of big striker, tall striker that's been refereed differently. It happens up and down the divisions where someone who is looks slightly different to everybody else gets a raw deal, just because of the sort of, maybe they're more angular, or maybe they're just bigger, and so duels look different to a referee, to the naked eye, so therefore he's like, right, well, that's a foul. I'm not sure he can do. Don't think anyone of his size and stature can do anything about that, really.
I just wonder. I mean, I was listening to an ex-pro talk about one of the worst players to mark being Didier Drogba, because what he used to do was, the first time the ball came up, he would absolutely back into you and barge the hell out of you, and the second time he'd do it again, and so the third time you'd be like, right, okay, I need to barge him, and then he wouldn't do it, so you'd barge into the back of him, he'd go down and get the free kick, and it's just like that sort of. I don't even see a world where Haaland can do that, because it feels like if the third time, if he gets barged into and goes down, the referee just goes, well, you're a big lad, you need to carry on and get on with it.
Yeah. Also, the other thing is I've seen it when he's backed into defenders, and defenders come over the top of him to try and meet the ball first. That's a foul every day of the week, but he doesn't seem to get them. Everyone, all of the strikers seem to pick up fouls like that, and he doesn't get it. He's probably genuinely. I might find this silly. I honestly think it's because he's so good that he's refereed differently. They just go, oh well, you're amazing, just get on with it. Subconsciously.
Maybe. The press conference on Tuesday, where Guardiola was talking about the officiating, it took a bit of a surprising turn, because he started by pointing out that we've never had so much information available to us when it comes to what referees can be shown. But that quickly turned to events worldwide rather than just what happens on the football field. And in a whole of a 17-minute embargoed part of the press conference, it was like there was two press conferences going on at once, where he was speaking about the football on one hand, but then also speaking passionately about Palestine, the global humanitarian crisis, the situation with ICE in America, refugees crossing bodies of water, and then he would go back to referees and the VAR. I mean, Oli, I don't know if you've seen it and taken it all in. What did you make of kind of everything that he was saying, and kind of how the two things were kind of existing side by side?
For one, I think Pep really relishes the role of being. I think is he the longest serving Premier League manager? I think he is now.
Got to be, hasn't he? Surely.
But I think he really relishes that kind of elder statesman feel. And a few years ago, I don't think he'd have ever said any of this in press conferences because he would try and be more polite, especially when it comes to the referee side of things. But now he's like, I don't care. Who are you to judge me on what I say? Because I'm Pep Guardiola. But the thing is, he's always been a very political man. I remember him getting, told off by the FA for the yellow ribbon years ago when there was the crisis in Catalonia. There was those issues.
2018 or so as well, isn't it? So we're talking like early years Guardiola at City.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact, I think it was the season after COVID when I think all the stadiums were still shut. He was wearing the open arms hoodie every week in the Premier League and making a big deal of that in press conferences from time to time, which is a charity supporting the refugee crisis and, getting funds out. And then the last year or so, he's been more and more vocal on Palestine and what's happening over there. And he's mentioned Sudan. And then obviously he's brought in the situation with ICE in America. I just feel like he's such a well-informed man that obviously everyone's got a right to speak on these issues. And if they've got a platform, for me, with where I stand politically and with where I stand on the various crises around the world, I think it's a really, really important thing that people in his position speak up and make it very clear where they stand. But the fact is we also see a lot of celebrities give those sort of unpassionate statements where they've just read a couple of lines on social media and they think it's just going to make them look a little bit better, or they wear a pin at an award show and that's enough. The thing I've always liked about Guardiola is that when he commits to something, he does it he does it wholeheartedly. And his kind of interest and his passion in geopolitical crises and his interest in that, it spans because of his background from where he's from. He probably feels the sense of oppression that the Palestinian people are under. He probably feels the sense of oppression that people in, Minnesota are under, people who are in Sudan. What annoys me is that people, both in and outside the City fan base, take this as an opportunity to deride him, say, well, why are you speaking on politics? You're just a football manager. And I think that is misunderstanding where he's coming from completely. He's not doing it to say, look at me, I'm Pep Guardiola, the politician. He's saying it because it's something he passionately cares and feels strongly about. If only more managers had more personality like him, then I think the world could be a slightly better place, especially in the world of football. But yeah, he's got his right to say those things. For me, I completely agree with him. I'm not going to hide that fact. But yeah, it was interesting. But it was one of the few moments I've had where, outside of what's happening on the football pitch, I've been really proud of Manchester City and Pep Guardiola, because City with their ownership and everything, they could really have derided Pep for that and put out a briefing afterwards, and they didn't, and they let Pep's words stand for themselves, and that's the most important thing.
Well, this is interesting, isn't it, Jack? Because he did mention Sudan in the press conference. It was one of the crises that he talked about. There's been a lot of people hit out and accuse him of hypocrisy because of City's ownership and everything there. In March last year, for people who haven't been following the story, in March last year, Sudan referred the UAE to the International Court of Justice, accusing them of supporting one of the paramilitary groups that is accused of committing atrocities in the civil war there. Sheikh Mansour is obviously vice president of the UAE. He's also the owner and founder of the Abu Dhabi United Group, which is the majority shareholder of the City Football Group, which owns City, which employs Pep Guardiola. So there are links there that, like, you can understand the accusations of hypocrisy, can't you?
Yeah, but he would have been accused of that if he'd not mentioned Sudan.
Well, yeah. So, like, is it fair that he faces this accusation because nobody else is speaking out about this?
No, I don't know. I don't think it is fair, but I think he would have got it any which way, which sort of goes back to the statement by the Jewish Representative Council, which actually said the word "stick to football" in it, which if he doesn't, it's really difficult because if he does stick to football, he gets people sort of saying he's taking the money from an ownership that's sort of involved in the civil war going on in Sudan. You know, experts of the UN sort of agree with Sudan's point of view legally, but then the UAE have pledged, I think it's about $500 million to humanitarian aid in the last 2 or 3 days to Sudan. So it's really it's such a difficult issue to pick your way through. Is it right for Guardiola to be talking about these issues? Absolutely, because why shouldn't he be allowed to? But there's so many different sort of strands to it, and even with the Sudan aspect of it, as I said before, he would have been criticised if he'd not said anything, and now he's been criticised that he has been said something, and he's also been criticised for only mentioning it in passing, apparently. And it's well, what's the expectation here? I don't know what you want really. But I also think from his point of view, it is very much like, I am Guardiola. I am not going to be a football manager for forever. This is a platform I now want to use more than I've ever used before. And I take the point about Catalan independence in 2018 and the open arms hoodies and other sort of causes that he's backed publicly. But the other day felt different. That was like a real sort of, this is what I think. And, he clearly feels it's his time to sort of say what he wants to say. And he had it in his mind because he was talking about, I think he was talking about referees or VAR at the time. And then he just sort of then pivoted to a global humanitarian crisis. And then there's, from a press conference perspective, it's difficult because everyone in that room is there because of the football. So you then have, he said what he'd said, or he'd mentioned it, and then Sam Lee had asked him a question about it, about the humanitarian side, which I thought was really good that he asked, because I was thinking what I would ask or how I would ask it. And it's that's a very difficult thing to sort of bring up, because the question is, why do you want to bring this up? Because otherwise, the question is, well, yeah, women and children being killed is bad, isn't it? I mean, that's not a question, is it? So you've got to sort of, you've got to find you have to find like a newsy way of sort of presenting this to him. And Sam, to be fair to him, asked it in a way that I wouldn't have done, where he just went, well, why is it now that you want to sort of say this sort of thing? Which I thought was really good. And then it's difficult because other people, he also said things about, and this sounds so trivial, but he also said really interesting things about net spend and referees, and everyone's there for a different reason. So you've then got someone else asking him about spending and things like that. But then that feels like, oh, you can't really be asking him that because he said this just like massive stuff about the globe, and it's quite not awkward, but I didn't know how to feel about it. It was a strange sort of kind of 15 minutes to be in, really, in the sense that you look at it and you go, well, what we do, like, obviously none of it matters. Clearly none of it matters. Like, we all know that, but. I don't know. I'm really like, sorry, I'm sort of rambling about it, but I didn't really know how to feel about sort of like, well, I kind of want to know whether Bernardo Silva's going to be fit for Liverpool. You know what I mean? It's just, it's
quite
really
hard
difficult
to ask that question after that, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's it.
To be fair, when he was asked the football question, I didn't ask a question on Tuesday. But when he was asked a football question after he'd sort of answered Sam, he was very like sort of gracious about it, and it wasn't like, oh my God, like, why are you asking me about this? I've just said all this. Why are you then pivoting to something else? He was good about it, and I always say, like, yeah, we've had a difficult like few months with him where he's obviously sick of doing media, which is absolutely his prerogative after 10 years, and can't criticise him for that because he's done it. He's done us 4 times a week for a decade. But he still, I think he still respects the job, and I was very aware of that when he was answering football questions after he'd said something that he clearly wanted to get off his chest.
I have that same problem now, Jack. We've tried to steer this show straight back to the football, but like there is another element to this, Ollie, that I've seen a few people suggest. He's quite happy to talk about this now because he knows that he's nearing the end of his time at City. And I don't know. I don't know if I get that vibe from what's just happened. I don't know if I get the vibe that he's now getting things off his chest because he knows that he's not going to sign a contract extension. I just get the vibe that he feels that it's time that he said something about it.
Yeah, I didn't think, after seeing the quotes and then watching it, that this is a guy who's just saying this because he's getting ready to leave the club in a few months or in 18 months. It felt more to me that this is someone who's watched these atrocities happen around the world and has spent time formulating his opinions and speaking out on other platforms. And when he did the speech at Manchester University, when he was at that rally last week when Pep Linders had to step in and do his press conference because he was still in Barcelona, all those things, he's using his platform in one way, but he's got a chance to speak directly to reporters, and live on TV and live on YouTube on the Manchester City channel, about pretty much any topic he wants, because he can just take that narrative wherever he wants and then be asked questions on it. And I totally understand where both of you are coming from in terms of where it puts reporters in the room in a quite difficult position, because one, I imagine most of you aren't kind of trained to be a political reporter, which is what you kind of have to be, in those sorts of issues. That understanding can only be as much as you kind of take on outside of what you're doing in your job. For me, as someone who's both a football fan, but also, I studied Middle Eastern politics. I've studied the politics of genocide. I've got a very academic understanding of these issues. So I can go at it and go, actually, that's a guy who spent a lot of time looking at where exactly, these issues exactly, what he thinks about them and formulating them in a really, really kind of, I don't want to say suitable, but, in a very understandable way. For everyone else who may not be as in touch or who may not have the knowledge that Pepper's clearly gained. I just think he's at a point where he's not really bothered about what headlines say about him anymore. That's why he's happy to speak about refereeing decisions in the way that he never has before. It's why he's happy to speak on issues outside of football that he maybe hasn't broached before. It's why he seems more relaxed. Maybe it's because he knows he's leaving, but then he's had that sort of relaxed vibe about him for the last couple of years. I just think it's because he knows I don't want to say untouchable, but he could essentially say pretty much anything he wants and it's not going to affect him in terms of, unless it's something that goes against FA code of conduct and things. But apart from that, there's no sort of guidelines that he's going to follow because he's Pep Guardiola. Who can say no to Pep Guardiola, really?
Maybe it's also because he's 55 and he's just gone, right, I'm 55. I'm saying what I want now.
But Ollie's hit the nail on the head there. He is untouchable. Look at his comments about the Trump administration and ICE. So he's made that. Gaughan, signed up to the Trump's Board of Peace. Recently. Gaughan was at the White House last year. Guardiola says what he feels, and he knows that, what he says holds weight, and he's not going to have, he himself is not going to have political problems for what he has. Inside or outside the club, really, I don't think.
Well, let's kind of pivot away from there and go back to the football. We're going to preview the games with Liverpool and Fulham now. We start by hearing from Neil from the Anfield Wrap. I started by asking if things had improved since the last time we spoke.
Liverpool have been better in the last week or so. They've scored 10 goals at home, which comes as quite a significant improvement given where things were, including with the home form. By the way, if anything, the home forms, if Liverpool fail to qualify for the Champions League, I would argue the reason why will end up being the fact that they did not beat any of the 3 promoted sides at home. And I think you can make a bit of a case that the only one they deserved to beat was Burnley. The other 2 performances against Sunderland at the start of December and Leeds on New Year's Day were really, really poor. So seeing the 10 goals at home, a lot of people might go, well, it was only Qarabağ, but it was only Burnley. And Liverpool failed to do much to only score more than 1 goal in that game and ended up being punished for it. So, things are a bit better than, maybe not even necessarily better than the last time we spoke, but certainly better than they felt around the sort of the turn of the year. And then there's this other oddity, which is Liverpool have, broadly speaking, played well against good sides. I'd say the only time that isn't the case is the game at the Etihad. Every other time Liverpool this season have played against what you can sort of reasonably call a good side, I think they've actually played pretty well. Beat Villa at home, beat Real Madrid, beat Inter Milan away, took 4 points off Arsenal, and I'd argue were worthy of them across the 2 games. Maybe not quite worthy of 6, but worthy of 4 across the 2 games. So, when that's happened, we got beat at Stamford Bridge last minute, and we got beat at home to Manchester United, which remains hugely frustrating.
Listen, tell me about it. We've all been there recently. Tell me about it.
Yeah, it remains hugely frustrating in that, I think if Liverpool just get a point from both of those games now, obviously the league table looks different with reference to the Champions League situation, but also I'd venture that neither of those 2 sides are that good in the grand scheme of things in terms of making the observation that I've just made. So, we're a bit tricky to guess at the minute. The one thing you can say with certainty currently is that Hugo Ekitike and Florian Wirtz look the absolute business. And they are, they look like the future. They look like the plan. They look like this is what Liverpool wanted to do all along. Liverpool didn't buy a bad player last summer. Every single one of the signings has looked like a good player. They haven't got Isak, Leone or Frimpong on the pitch enough. And in the case of Isak and Leone, now that just feels like exceptional bad luck. With Frimpong, it's now a couple of hamstring and groin injuries after having a period of untrammelled fitness playing for Leverkusen, and maybe Liverpool need to have a little think about that. But it's the squad has been different forms of tired, a little bit of confusion. I don't think the manager's had the best season of his life. All of this is still obviously underpinned by the tragedy in the summer. It's not a good Liverpool season, but it could well be the beginnings of a very good Liverpool team. Yeah. And so it depends on what your outlook is. Across 5 years, this might be all right. Game to game at the minute, it often doesn't feel it.
Yeah, it's a very similar story that, of what's going on at the Etihad right now. Because, I'm interested to kind of get your thoughts. What tells the story of recent form better? Is it, 1 defeat since the end of November? Or is it only 4 wins in 9 games, 10 games?
Yeah, no, this is the problem, the core problem, and this throws back to, within that run of 9 games, 10 games since the end of November. This includes those games against Leeds twice, 3-3, when we were 2-0 up and 3-2 up, 0-0 against Leeds, 1-1 against Burnley, and 1-1 against Sunderland. And you just turn 3 of those into wins, just 3 of the 4 into wins, and it really, those numbers all feel better and the table looks better, and that's the difficulty. That's been the difficulty of the period, is that, and there's reasons for that. And I think the manager really wanted to go back to completely stabilising things. And there are some parallels, I'd argue, to Manchester City last season between when the clocks went back and when the clocks went forward. There are a few parallels in there in terms of what Schlotz felt as though he's needed to do. But in doing all of that, he's left some perfectly good points on the table, as far as I'm concerned. And that could well become the story of Liverpool's season. So this is a side that is on the road to becoming a very good side. I feel as though it could be a little bit further along that road than those results, the negative side of those results you've just suggested, suggest themselves. But you've still got to find a way to put the points on the board, because if Liverpool were to fail to qualify for the Champions League this season, when I think they've had a clear 2 summers plan in terms of renovating the squad, it would obviously massively fracture summer 2. Even today, as we record this, there's confirmation Liverpool are going to sign Jeremy Jacquet to play centre-back for Liverpool from next summer. And it's good long-term planning. The lad's 20 years old. Liverpool, it helps Liverpool massively. Liverpool have still got to make, I think, 4 or 5 transfers, allowing for a couple of outgoings in the summer. So Liverpool are still going to have work to do in the summer. But it's another step forward. But it's another step forward that's going to help Liverpool for the next 4 months.
How do you feel then that this squad kind of crashes into this game at the weekend? Because City, obviously, City felt like they were building towards something at the back end of 2025. Since 2026 has come along, it's felt like they've slowly been deconstructing what they've been building. And like the performances haven't been great. The results haven't been great. And we saw, as we record most recently against Tottenham, like City were absolutely cruising. And then in the end could have lost that game. So we know what City's record's like at Anfield. We know it's a place that they find incredibly difficult to go to. If Liverpool are struggling at Anfield as well, how does this play out at the weekend?
Well, I think Liverpool have got to build on the last 2 results, 10 goals at Anfield, and this is back to Ekitike and Wirtz. But in the same way, from a City point of view, you can make an argument around Shirky and Haaland. For me, it's going to be a game which is defined by those moments. I think the idea of the classic sort of Klopp Guardiola, huge quantities of ebb and flow over the course of the game, 25 minutes of sheer Manchester City domination, Liverpool find their way back into it, and then suddenly Liverpool come unbelievably strong for the last 15 before half time, or vice versa, because I think that there was vice versa. I just don't quite see that happening in that way of, there are individual, unbelievable levels of quality within individual battles happening all over this pitch that create this massive hole of this titanic struggle between these two forces. I don't think that's what we're going to see.
Do you think it comes down to who wins the duels?
I think it comes down to who wins the duels and who makes and takes advantage of the moments. It is massively about, Ekitike is not Haaland. He is not a striker. He's a centre forward. He's not that idea of a raw finisher, though he is a good finisher. But he is perpetual motion within games. Haaland is becoming more and more that player, I hasten to add. I think Haaland's link-up play this season at times has been very, very good indeed. But Ekitike is a centre forward. You can trace a line between classic Liverpool centre forwards and even ones who are slightly more creative, a la Firmino, around what Ekitike is, and Wirtz he's an absolute delight. He is the most sumptuous footballer you've seen in years, and he's now adding genuine output to go with what was at the start of the season touches. Right now I think he's got on something mad like a goal, and since the November international break he's not that far off a goal or an assist within every 90 minutes, and you can't keep him out the action. His movement and his ability to get on the ball is just genuinely phenomenal. He's constantly involved, and he's involved around the opposition penalty area. And I think how Liverpool do in the game will come down to those two. That doesn't mean that Salah can't be watched. Salah's not played well since coming back from AFCON, but he has missed good chances, and that's the most pleasing thing about what Salah's done since AFCON. Whilst not playing well, he has still got himself in a position in each of the matches he's played to get an opportunity you'd sort of expect him to score from. And I think if that continues, then at some point the goals come. But what it's also doing is it's creating space for other people. So Salah's a bit of an island, but you've got to worry about him. And if you don't worry about him, then he's going to get in, and at some point he will hurt someone. So there's reasons for Liverpool to be cheerful. But the other side of this, and this may well be where Guardiola's this whole situation, is Liverpool haven't got anything coming from the bench. There's no cavalry. There might be Curtis Jones. If he doesn't start Gakpo, then there'll be Gakpo. But he might not start. He might start Jones and not start McAllister. But there's not sort of the idea Liverpool can go, remove 2 big hitters and replace them with 2 big hitters. Liverpool have not got that move. What's good for Liverpool is they've got no game midweek. So we've got no game building up to this. So there's no reason not to think everyone isn't as close to 100% as they can be. What's less good for Liverpool is they need to have one eye on Sunderland, because we go away to Sunderland on the Wednesday, we need to get a result. And running ourselves into the ground against City will not help with the Sunderland game, but I think you've got to take them one at a time as they come through this. So I think it's going to be a game that's decided by moments and who keeps their cool in moments more than it's decided by the idea of continual football excellence.
Yeah. What's your score prediction for the charity bet?
I'm gonna be pure Mark Lawrenson for the charity bet for you, David. Unfortunately, so I'm gonna go with Liverpool 2, Manchester City 1. Which is much more hard than it is with head. In the past, I think when I've done this, I've done head. I think I've got a couple right as well. In the past, when I've done this, I've done head rather than heart. On this, I just sort of feel as though if It feels to me as though it's possible Liverpool could get 2-0 up within the hour and then City peg Liverpool back, and it's a very nervy finish at Anfield, but Liverpool hang on.
Please give us your backing. Patreon.com/Blue Moon Podcast.
That was Neil from the Anfield Wrap. Ollie, does City have any hope of catching Arsenal? If they do, are they going to have to win at Anfield?
Yes and yes is the short answer there. I think yes, because for me, I still look at the fact that we've got the game against Arsenal. If we didn't have that chance to take 3 points directly off them, then it would be a different story. But City, I think, if they want to kind of get themselves out of this kind of mini funk they've been in, they need to go and get a big win at Anfield. And by a big win, I don't mean racking up the goals. I mean just getting a win.
Getting a win
and putting in a professional performance, because this is a City team that over the last couple of years has struggled in the big matches away from home. We used to be so dominant against the top six in kind of previous guises of this team. And it does seem to have dropped off a little bit over the last couple of years. Well, dropped off quite heavily over the last couple of years. So for City to go and get a win at Anfield against the Liverpool team that, whilst they're not resurgent, and you probably wouldn't consider them they're probably more looking at getting top four. That's still a Liverpool side with big expectations on them for this season, regardless, because it's Liverpool. They spent 500 million in the summer, all of that sort of thing. So for City to go and get a win there would be a huge confidence boost for them, no matter what. But I think it would kind of open eyes up in North London, and they go, oh, okay, they're still here, regardless of what Arsenal do at the weekend. I think, City winning at Anfield would be a kind of, not a shock to the system for Arteta and his, gang of misfits and set piece prats, but
be a shock to the system for every City fan in that away end, though. I can tell you that.
Absolutely. And maybe that's what we need. Maybe that's what we need as a fan base. We've gone to this kind of pretty god awful 6 weeks where we can't, get a win to save our lives, except against Newcastle in the Carabao Cup. And we're coming out of it with a win at Anfield would just be the kind of biggest. We're so back. Let's take it on now. I've changed my mind on whether City are going to win the league every other week at this point. So a win at Anfield, a win this weekend at Anfield, or I might even put money on it.
A ground they've won at once behind closed doors in 22 and a half years. It feels unlikely at best. Jack, let's talk about some individual players, because we've talked a lot about the issues in build-up and the kind of the problems that City have when the ball goes back to Donnarumma and they try and kind of build up from there. We've just seen 2 games against Newcastle where James Trafford has really helped City play through the build-up, but also pull off some big saves at important times. Donnarumma's made big saves at important times as well. Like, I'm not going to say... It feels like the question should be, is there a decision to be made there? But there isn't, because he's going to pick Donnarumma. No, what's the balance here?
Well, there is no balance, because you can't sub him on, can you? I think Donnarumma's come to the fore, I think, over the last few weeks, particularly in these second halves that we've been talking about, in that he's made a string of really good saves. I thought he was excellent at United. He was excellent at Spurs. He's proven why they were so desperate to get him, I think, in those sort of games. Unlike the United one, didn't affect the result, but he kept it respectable. Trafford, you look at... We spoke to Tijani Reinders after the game on Wednesday night, and he said, "Well, look at all the spaces we had in midfield. This is why we played really well, and this is why we scored 3 goals." And effectively, it sounded like he was saying Newcastle gave us way too much room to play. But I don't know whether that's because I'd have to watch the game properly again. But I don't know whether that's because of the build-up that includes the goalkeeper, and they were playing with a higher risk. I mean, sometimes in Trafford, there was a couple of incidents during the Newcastle game where Trafford's played that little pass into Gonzalez on the edge of the box that looked very Spursy from the start of the season.
I was going to say, of the 2 goalkeepers, Donnarumma hasn't given it away to the opposition for them to score.
No,
but
well, he
James
very
Trafford
much
has.
plays.
Yeah,
I mean, Donnarumma very much knows his limitations and sort of gets rid of it. And I don't think... they know what they're getting with Donnarumma, and I don't think Donnarumma's distribution has been as bad as what people were thinking or what was predicted. But they definitely lose an edge with him that I think they do have with Trafford. But I don't think Trafford's distribution is perfect either, and it'll be interesting. I mean, we'll never know because he'll never get a run of games, will he? But I don't know whether that's because he's just not played enough with the sort of the City midfielders, so like a Rodri or a Gonzalez, or whether his passing out from the back is just a little bit too risky. We'll never know which one it is.
Would you do it for Anfield, given that City are going to come under pressure?
No,
you're going to want your goalkeeper who makes the big saves, or you want the goalkeeper who can play through the pressure?
You have your big goalkeeper that makes the saves, because Donnarumma does have faults, and I would like to see him catch a ball every so often. He saves his best performances for the biggest games. I'll never, in the context of this season, you'll never forget that save from Mbeumo in September when United were really on top second half, and he's made an absolute worldy save, and City see out the game and win it. And they could have easily drawn that game. And it's just like moments like that just prove his value, and they just have to find a way of, they've not found it yet, but they have to find a way of being able to build up with him as the goalkeeper, because he is, he just gives you so much in other areas.
Well, if we take that same line of thinking and go down to the other end of the pitch, we talked about Haaland and how he's refereed. He's been struggling for form lately. Marmoush came in and scored twice, albeit with an element of comedy about both goals, but he did score twice. Is there a world where Marmoush starts ahead of Haaland at Anfield, or is it just, it's Haaland, you pick him?
I mean, it's going to be Haaland. I'm pretty certain of that. I think the only way Marmoush gets a start in this game is if he's nominally out wide or playing behind. But then again, you're dropping a Cherki or a Semenyo or a Foden, who, for all intents and purposes, are they more important than Marmoush this season? I don't know. But frankly, we were having this discussion. I was having this discussion in another group chat, and it was Haaland's record at Anfield isn't great. But Marmoush, I don't think he scored away in the Premier League yet. So it's kind of like, well, which curse do you want to go with?
Which flavour of shit would you like? Yeah,
yeah, exactly. If he does start Marmoush, I think everyone on social media is going to overreact and go, Pep's back to overthinking and all of that. But I go, actually, a bit of a ballsy move. Play the guy who's just scored 2, comedic goals, but he's got more form than Haaland at the moment. But then again, Haaland's cameo did look more promising. He had a bit more life about him than he's had the past few weeks. So I think he'll G himself up for this one, regardless. And he'll want to get a goal and just put this to bed, and just one, put the Anfield thing to bed, but 2, also just kind of get himself back into form. I don't think Haaland's the sort of guy that you can drop and expect him to regain his form. He's someone who plays himself back in regardless. I think you're more likely to annoy him in a bad way than annoy him in a good way by dropping him. You're not going to give him that fire in the belly. He'll get that fire in the belly on the pitch. So yeah, I would just start Haaland. Maybe there's an argument to bring Marmoush into the side, depending on injuries and such like. But yeah, you got to go with Haaland for this one. You got to go with your 2 big men in, one between the sticks and one, trying to get the ball in between the sticks.
Let the middle try and work it out for itself. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'd play them both.
We play both Rodri and Nico Gonzalez.
Yeah. I'd probably be tempted to play
O'Reilly in there as well.
I'd probably play O'Reilly at left back, actually. And then the 2 in front of Rodri and Gonzalez. Don't know. Reinders and someone else. Maybe Cherki. Possibly. But I'd go with that box and the 2 up front.
Yeah.
Again, I think. Because that seems to be giving them a little bit of joy.
The Fulham game, I don't know if you were at Craven Cottage for that one, Jack, back in November, December, can't remember. But it was a game where they went. I was watching it on catch up, and my partner was out and coming home, and was texting me as he was getting closer to home, and was like, And I happened to say the words, well, it's just gone to 5-1, so I think it'll be all right now. And then, obviously, all hell broke loose. So if we're talking about teams that can cause City problems when it comes to them not controlling games, Fulham could be a little banana skin in there.
Yeah, maybe. I think the losing control at Fulham was largely down to one of the substitutes that came on that kind of changed the game. City just kind of lost their heads like a little bit. I remember can't remember what they brought Stones on, I think, to shore it up, and it just looked worse, and everyone was like really jittery and panicky. And there was a pace from, I think it was Chukwueze. It just scared him quite a lot. And I don't think, if you can't beat Fulham at home, then they don't deserve to win the title, do they?
I mean, if they do beat Fulham at home, I'm not sure they still deserve to win the title. So,
well, no. But I mean, like, it'd be interesting to see if Bob's fit. I think he probably will be fit. So so he's back quite quickly after his move, isn't he? So
what do you think of all that?
Aspect. What, the Bob stuff?
Yeah.
I think it's a massive shame. I think the fractured leg basically did for his City career a little bit. I don't think he fully trusted his body when he came back, and sort of played within himself a little bit. I think, to be honest with you, this season he did have enough chances at the start of the season and didn't do enough. And I think once you're out with Pep, you're out, and that's it. And I don't think there's been a sort of Pep has kind of been suggesting over the last few weeks that Bob was the one that pushed for the move. I think Bob was basically told you can go because they were signing Semenyo, and that's homegrown for homegrown. I think it just come to a sort of natural end, really, which is a real shame, because when there was quite a lot of discourse around sort of what a mistake it was letting Cole Palmer go, and Cole Palmer's the new Pele and all this sort of stuff, and City were like, they told Bob when they sold Palmer, it's like, you will get Palmer's minutes, and we have trust in you. And obviously then he scored that goal at Newcastle in injury time a couple of years ago, which is such a magic moment, and everyone thought he was going to sort of kick on and fly, and he was great in the pre-season after, and then just had that freak training ground accident with Bernardo Silva, and when he was sort of, I think he got his feet caught in the turf when he's controlling the ball, and then Silva came in, and it's just that, and that's it.
That's it. We will do predictions shortly, but first let's get a view from Craven Cottage. I've spoken to Elizabeth from Fulhamish, starting with that crazy 5-4 game from earlier in the season.
I think for Fulham fans, we see that game as kind of a cult classic of the season. Like, obviously, we lost the game. We had on to lose it. Nobody would remember it if it was a 2-1 or a 1-0 or even maybe a 3-2. But the manner of it and the comeback of, we were 5-1 down, we were dead and buried, and then suddenly it was 5-3 and then 5-4, and we thought just maybe. A game which just is beyond all reason. I don't think any Fulham fans could really pull anything from our performance on that day, but just a massive spectacle, delight to watch, of course.
Yeah, I think I'm responsible for it, because at 5-1, my partner was out and was coming home, and I sent a text just saying, "No, it's 5-1. I think it's all right now." No, not all right at all, was it? It's very much not all right. How does that kind of reflect Fulham's form this season? Because just looking across the board, as we speak, you do have a game with Everton before we meet in the midweek. But currently 8th in the table. It seems things are pretty stable right now.
Yeah, and have been in very good form over the winter, which has been a delight. We had a bit of a shaky autumn. We had 5 losses out of 6 coming into towards the end of November. And then we had a win away at Spurs, which at the time felt really massive.
Hey, listen, I'm happy to take any win at Spurs. So
I was going to say, turns out everyone wins at Spurs, but obviously I remember who I'm talking to. And then we had obviously a game against City, game against Palace, and then since then we've been on a really good run. So we were unbeaten for a long time in the league between sort of early December and mid-January, which was really great. And we did it all without our AFCON players as well, who were so important to the squad. We've had a couple of shaky results recently. We just lost at Manchester United, which was incredibly difficult to take, the manner of that defeat. But we're in really good form. I think we're all looking upwards. We've got, after City, our next game is a game in the FA Cup, and we all really want a very good cup run. So things are feeling pretty positive at the moment.
Yeah, who's playing well right now? Because like you mentioned that game at United, and you know, to come back from 2-0 and basically have equalised and then lose it at the death, I can understand the real kind of the upset at that. But like there must be a lot of fight in the squad at the minute to be able to, like, the comeback against City, the comeback against United. There's fight there to be able to do this.
Yeah, there are great performers all over the pitch, and a couple of returnees as well that I think we'll see in these games. A few that I can shout out. First of all, up top, Raul Jimenez, who's been playing as our top striker. He's got a very impressive penalty record. Recently overtook Yaya Touré's 100% goal record from penalties, which is very impressive, but has also been a real threat in the box airily. And he lacks a little bit of pace as he's got a bit older, but he's still getting on the end of things and providing goals. And like, you don't really lose that nous in front of goal, and he hasn't. He's been really impressive for us. Behind him is Emile Smith-Rowe, who is playing in an under 10 position, really coming to his own this season. But in terms of players to shout out, like, I've buried the lead. There's only one name, and it's Harry Wilson, really. He has just been Fulham's star this season, and his run of really good form has coincided with Fulham's run of really good form over the winter. He was always a good player for us, always a reliable player for us, had some problems with injury, but something has switched. And I think it's the way that he's able to read the game. He's just gained this maturity, and a maturity not only of awareness of the game, but of his own abilities. And it means that he is really playing to his strengths at the moment, which is just a delight to see. He's in the last year of his contract at the moment, and we're a little bit worried that he's going to go in the summer because he has just been phenomenal this season.
Speaking of contracts, last time I spoke to Sammy earlier in the season, when Marco Silva's contract was under discussion. Is there a conclusion to that? Has anything been done? Because it is due to end at the end of the season, isn't it?
Yeah, still TVC. I hope by the time that we play you guys, maybe things will have changed. We've been hearing for like weeks, months that it's close, it's being done, or, you know, all that kind of thing. But the writing is not on the wall yet. Like, we need to know what's going to happen. Yeah, it's a difficult one. The January transfer window has been massive in Silva's future or not. He was very vocal with how disappointed he was over the summer. And he wanted to be backed in January. And like, in my opinion, he has been. So we'll see. Obviously, it's a bit of a catch-22 in terms of like, the board didn't want to back a manager that wouldn't stay, but the manager doesn't want to commit his future before he's back. If the board won't
back him, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a difficult one. I'm hopeful that he'll continue at Fulham beyond the end of the season, to be honest. I'm hopeful he'll sign the contract. He's built something really good here, and I think people are pulling in the right direction. I'm also not 100% sure where he goes. I know that Spurs will probably be looking for a new manager. I don't think they'll go for another upcoming manager in the Premier League after Frank. Man United, I don't think will go for him. And then I'm not quite sure. I think Villa and Newcastle won't be looking for a manager. I don't really know where he moves to, maybe to Europe. So I'm hopeful that he'll stay, but obviously it is a worry.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about kind of what he's built at Fulham. What can you achieve this season? Because as I say, like you look at the squad, there's options from the bench when you want to kind of see games out or change games. You know, the squad he's built is quite a tight knit unit, and there's a lot going for it, and in good form for the season. Currently, like we say, in 8th position. What can Fulham achieve this year?
Well, what I want more than anything is a cup run, to be honest. I would take any cup run over a league finish at this point. I would love to get to Wembley. I would love to make it to the semis. Obviously, we all saw what Crystal Palace did last year. They knocked Fulham out on their way as well. Don't worry, like we had a terrible day against Crystal Palace, but that has lit a fire in a lot of Fulham fans' bellies about the cup. So I think that's my main thing. And then in the league, I guess looking forward to this game, a European finish would be beyond our wildest dreams. I would snap your hand off for Conference League at this point, 100%.
What do you think Silva will do coming to the Etihad? Because it's been a tricky place for Fulham to come to. The last couple of seasons you've done really well and probably should have had something from the games and didn't get anything. Like, given the way that City are at the moment and given the way that Fulham seem quite stable, how do you think Silva will approach this one?
Yeah, it will be interesting to see what we do in our midfield, to be honest, because we don't have Sasha Lukic available. You would expect him to play alongside Sander Berge. They're our more defensive midfield duo, right? And we've got a more attacking duo in that defensive midfield position, which is Berge alongside Iwobi. But coming to the Etihad, like, it's Pep's Manchester City, we've got to go as strong as possible. So I wouldn't be too surprised to see the five at the back. I think the five at the back sometimes stifles Fulham a little bit. So 3 centre-backs and then the wing-backs sort of pushing a little bit further forward, but still very much defensive. But I do think the 5 at the back allows us to go for a slightly more attacking midfield and really utilise those attacking players in the midfield better. And then up top, I think it will be the same trio that we've been expecting. So Raul, although maybe Rodrigo Muniz will be back for this game, I don't think he'll be our starting number 9, but he might be on the bench. And then obviously Wilson on the right, and then on the left, probably Sami Chukwueze, could be Kevin, but one of those two. And potentially, obviously Oscar Bob has just joined Fulham from Manchester City.
This is it, isn't it? This is an interesting one.
Potentially a return to him, maybe a bit too soon. It's hard to say. I don't think that Chukwueze or Kevin have really done anything to lose a spot on the wings, and Wilson definitely hasn't. So maybe we'll see him off the bench.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that as a deal? Are you happy with it?
Yeah, so excited. Like a player out of the City Academy. Like we have. I haven't seen that much of Bob, I'll be honest. Like, I can't remember many games he's featured in. I know he's been quite hampered by injury in the past. But seeing what other City Academy graduates have done when they've moved, yeah, it could be pretty special.
Yeah. Well, Elizabeth, we have charity bet coming up a bit later on the programme. And mine often goes to the guests. So what's your score prediction for this one? What would you like to put on for the charity bet?
Oh, I'm going to go for a 2-2. I'm feeling optimistic.
You're listening to the Blue Moon Podcast. You've made it this far, so don't give up now.
Now, we had a win on the charity bet on last week's show, as Joe Butterfield correctly predicted the 2-2 draw at Spurs, although that was very much the consolation prize of the afternoon. William Hill has given us 3 £10 correct score singles on City's games. The winnings are going to the Man City Fans Food Bank Support Group, and we are on £390 for the season so far. So it's been a bad season for us as well, but we are getting there slowly. We heard for the trip to Anfield, Neil's gone for a 2-1 Liverpool win. That is 8-1 and £80 if he's right. Ollie, I'll come to you. What are you having for this one?
Liverpool 1-1. All that talk of let's get a win at Anfield, I want to go safe and say 1-1.
Excellent. Well, that's 6-1 and £60 if you're right. Jack, give us the bad news, mate, because we know that you're most likely to be right on this one.
Liverpool 3-1.
Yeah, it seems I am always surprised at how the bookies how long the odds are for Liverpool wins against City at Anfield are, because it just seems the most likely outcome all day of the week for me. 14-1, £140 if you
wow, really?
Yeah. It's like I don't understand how it is worth that much, but there we are. That brings us to Fulham. We heard Elizabeth went for 2-2. That's 16-1 and £160. Ollie, what are you having?
2-0.
2-0 is. 2-0 City is 6-1. That's good because I didn't check what 2-0 Fulham was. 6-1, £60 if you're right. Jack, over to you.
A 3-1 City.
3-1 City, there we are. 10-1 and £100 if you are right. Remember, you've got to be 18 or over to gamble. Prices can change. And for information on responsible gambling, have a look at gambleaware.org. We will squeeze one listener question in because we know it's been a long show. Jack on Instagram says, did the finish on Marmoush's first goal against Newcastle ruin what was a good move? Has there ever been a worse finish to a better move than that one? Jack, I don't know.
It wasn't even a finish.
Well, I was going to say it was tackled into the net, wasn't it? So does that ruin it? Because the build up before it was quite nice.
It was quite nice.
Or does that make it better?
No, well, it doesn't make it better, does it? Let's not be silly. I think the way that it sort of ricocheted off him and looped over was actually aesthetically quite nice. So, perfectly fine for me.
Yeah, there was a goal that you'll be too young to remember this, Ollie, but there was a goal that City conceded when they were relegated from the Premier League under Joe Royle, when I think we all knew they were going down, when Charlton went 3-0 up at Main Road by, do you remember Jonathan Johansson, the Charlton midfielder? He was closing down.
Is that Jonathan to his friends?
Maybe, I don't know. He was closing down Richard Dunn in the centre circle, and Dunn just booted it, and it hit Johansson on the shin and looped the entire length of the pitch and dropped in. But while it was it took probably about 5 or 6 seconds to get from the halfway line to over Nicky Weaver's head into the goal. The bloke behind me, while it was still on its upward part of the trajectory, just went, "It's in," and then there was 1, 2, 3. Drops into the net, and it's just like the comedic value of that, while also knowing that you're going 3-0 down at home, and probably I think they were probably 19th in the table by this stage. So I think it was the point where we were all going this team has run out of luck. They're not going to get anything here. Ollie, has there ever been a better move that's been ruined by the finish? I can't. There's one I can think of that I'm wondering maybe you're going to say.
The only goal in my mind at the moment is Jack Grealish's first for City when he scored off his thigh against Norwich. Because he just stood there. He didn't move his leg at all. He just stood there and he just went off his thigh.
Hit him.
Yeah. That's the only one coming to mind. But I actually, Marmoush's was worse, which in my head makes it better. But when Florian Wirtz does it on Sunday, I'm going to feel terrible about it.
Yeah, I was thinking Sane at Arsenal in that 3-0.
Oh,
when there was all the wonderful build-up, then he scuffs it over the line. I'm just like, just finish it, and you've got the beautiful goal.
Poachers finishes, gotta love them.
Yes. If you think of any, let us know at bluemoonpodcast.com on Blue Sky. You can email contact@bluemoonpodcast.com as well, and you can find us on Instagram. Just search Blue Moon Podcast there. Get your questions in for next week as well. But for now, that is it for this episode of the show. Thank you very much to my guests, Jack Gaughan.
Thank you very much.
And Oli McCoole.
Thank you very much for having me.
There is a clip coming up of this week's Nostalgia Show. That was Liam Wright and Fulham fan Sammy James picking out their good and bad matches in City Heaven, City Hell. If you want to hear the full thing now, just head on over to members.bluemoonpodcast.com. I'll be back next week, so I will see you then.
That was the Blue Moon Podcast. Please give the show a rating and a review where you can. And don't forget, you can listen without the ads by signing up to our Patreon. You'll also get an extra episode each Monday. Here's a clip of this week's.
I think Arsenal looked at the run and I think there was no hope that West Ham would go to the Etihad and get anything. So I think all Arsenal hopes rested on Fulham. So it was quite a fun match going into it, I remember. And all I remember in the build-up was, I believe Rodrigo Muniz was one of them. Maybe Raul Jimenez was in there. There was certainly 2 or 3 Fulham players that were filmed flying kites in training. And I just remember...
I remember this. I'd forgotten all about this. Yeah.
Arsenal fans went into oblivion, hoping that Fulham were their one true hope of lifting the Premier League title for the first time in 20 years. Meanwhile, over at Motspur Park, Rodrigo Muniz is flying kites with Andreas Pereira.
Got to talk about Guardiola in this run-in, because the fear in his eyes when he got offered that penalty towards the end, and he knew that if he took it, even if he scored, Guardiola would not be happy with him because he wasn't the designated penalty taker.
Yeah, I can't remember what we were singing in the away end, but I was definitely one of those who was egging him on to take it, because how many times is a centre half / left back going to have the chance to score a hat trick?
You can listen to more of that at patreon.com/Blue Moon Podcast. and join us again next time for another episode.